Hi, folks. I'm Nick Tucker with the Historical Fencing Guild. Pardon me if the lighting seems a little odd. The adaptation to my Chromebook is open.
We'll try that. I bet that's a lot better. Hi, folks. I'm Nick Tucker with the Historical Fencing Guild. I forgot I had to put my headphones on. As you can see, we've had to make some major adaptation due to some severe technological issues, wherein my computer is completely bricked. I attempted to repair it, and I have failed thus far. So we have a lot to talk about. I see that Alec's having a rough night. Reach out if you need anything, Alec. I'm here. We have a lot to talk about because, first off, I actually had to change the upload because of earlier technical problems. I have a 17-minute revisitation of my original drills. I promised you guys I'd do a video. I had to go down yesterday to the Benton County Public Library, so I used their meeting area and was able to do a lengthy explanation on the dual-wielding approach of drilling, not for the training, but for building the strength and flexibility back up and to save a lot of time. So it's going to be very useful. It was almost loaded, and I realized I was loading it to the wrong channel. Had to delete it, and I'll have to start it over once I have completed this video, because the uploads always mess up with my my streams. But I do want to remind you guys that the Historical Fencing Guild is made possible by the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, my ongoing series of books. It's also made possible by generous. I'm sorry, I'm a little fried right now. A generous StreamYard subscription from IndieCD.org. Yes, IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best of the brightest. Now, we have to talk because we are setting up for the pumpkin cutting video. That will be as soon as I can make a connection timeline-wise with Trelena and possibly Joe. More people wanted to get in on the action of doing that, and I want to help them do so. So we have about 6 pumpkins that will meet their fiery end, or their metallic end, and then they'll be the guts will be cleaned up and scraped to allow you guys to see real weapons cutting, at least something tangible, as well as making sure that you guys can just get entertained. Just get entertained. I'm a little scrambled because today's been a very big day for me. I'm assuming my audio is working. Everybody's kind of quiet. I appreciate the support you're showing for Alec. Like I said, if Alec is having a hard time, they need all the help they can get. So we're going to try to keep that up. And while we're waiting, we're doing this. I am kind of surprised at how quiet everyone is today. So I'm hoping I'm not having technical difficulties. But the training demo is up. It is working. It is doing just fine. Well, I mean, it is not up. It is recorded. It needs to go up. I'm sorry, guys. This is just, I got kind of dizzy a bit. But we have the sword fighting coming, and I want to start getting back into filming more regular, scripted or at least pre-recorded things to fill out more beyond the usefulness of the live stream. Now, I do have a couple of announcements to take care of. First, part of the delay in a few things was the fact that my neighbor's house caught fire. And as he was in the house at the time, I had to go in and get him. And that, I'm sorry, I just saw Thesis's thing. I promised I've got a script written for a short ad that I can send you to put on your other channel, but this week has been crazy and I haven't had a chance to film it. This week has been crazy for everybody, Thesis. I think I was stammering in part because I was worried about my system working. We have, as I said, so I had to help the neighbor because my next door neighbor's house caught on fire and I had to pull him out and then keep him from running back in. So I was rather distracted for part of it and then giving him what support I could threw a lot else off. But in the meantime, I did make some big news that is much more geared towards the other channel. But, okay. Thank you. I was concerned. We actually got the White Boot Arms and Artistry, my booth, the business I take to cons, fully licensed as an LLC. So now, oddly enough, I'm CEO. This is something that feels very odd, for me. But for anyone who is in the central Indiana, west central, I believe is how to put it, I will be, my wife and I are holding a convention for independent creators February 24th. So 2/24/2024 at the Benton County Annex in Fowler, Indiana. Very soon I'm going to make ads for it and everything, but we're going to be working on that to help bring what we do all together to help people sell their stuff and learn. We'll have the authors, the artists. It's going to be a great time. We've had to put a lot of effort into it, and of course, as soon as we laid down the rather sizable amount of money to make this happen, my computer dies. So the lack of quality is because I am doing this from a Chromebook. I may be able to get my old the camera I use hooked up, but right now I haven't been able to pull that off. So we are working to make this go through. Please, guys, if you're watching this now or in the distant future, Thesis's channel has a great series called The Tea House. And Thesis is really approaching a lot of quality issues that you guys need to be listened to if you are interested in Eastern martial arts. I intend to be promoting it very soon. I don't know how well I can go. My voice is a little torn up, apparently. And I'm not sure why. It wasn't this bad earlier. But, oh, I know why. One second. There's been a lot of dust kicked up. And I am very allergic to dust, so my throat's trying to close up a bit. But I was really excited to get out and do the drills. And, oh, God, sweet and sour chicken. That's just problematic. I'm a fairly professional broadcaster most of the time. I'm just having trouble keeping it together all of a sudden. So we're gonna make it. There have been a lot of setbacks. Oh, what's this? I got my first comment on one of the Tea House streams, and I have no idea what they meant. It happens. I wanted to give you a little space to stretch, but I will try to go through those as time allows and see more of it. But we'll see. It's trying, and as you know now, it is not easy to sit in front of the screen and talk when you're not sure what you're doing, what you're talking about. This is a really extra rough time for any of us with chronic injuries because the sudden temperature change and dramatic pressure shifts are wreaking havoc on a lot of people's joints. That means you have to listen to your body. You have to be extra gentle if you're going to maintain the progress we've been making while drilling and fighting. And the only way to maintain that progress is to carefully put in the hours. I'm really excited to show you guys that video, but like I said, I have to re-upload it. When it's up, it will be set up for probably a week as a Patreon exclusive, and then I'll let them decide if it is going public. Assuming it does go public, we will. I'll change it over, and I'll share it around, and we'll let more folks see what's going on, because I think it's a good resource. However, the only way to move forward with the rest of my things means balancing out a whole lot of my incredibly bizarre schedule. And that's okay. It's exciting, and it's kind of troubling, but it is going to allow me the means to help make what we're doing more visible. So having an event where it's dedicated to the IndieCD.org, which is the group which is a website and group run by Joe Bachman, a fellow guildie, who's just a brilliant man. Through him, we can bring what we do to the forefront. That means we can show, our the manuals. We can show the references. We can show the tools we're making. I can expand on some of my projects because I am slowly redeveloping my hands. I was able in the last week or two to do a few things that I have not had the dexterity and strength to do in literal years. And the reason for that is because I've sat in and done the work, done my goofy little exercises, did the having to endure the gut-wrenching sensation of shame that comes from having to build back up from nothing. And it's important we talk about that to really express what keeps us going when everyone in the world would stop. Because there's something there, and it's important. It empowers us. It ennobles us. And you have to find where the root of that is. It may be a matter of faith. It may be a matter of raw force of personality driving you forward. But those of us who want to train with physical limitations, mental limitations, whatever is holding us back, we have to identify it, we have to quantitate it, and we have to find workarounds for that. And it's not easy, but it will be worth it. Let's see. I've considered joining IndieCD, but I'm not entirely sure what I would bring to the group. I have looked at the site a few times. Well, IndieCD is a great place to promote your services if you have them, your work. Even if, remember, being a YouTuber is something, okay? As soon as you start putting educational videos out about what you do, you are creating a media that people appreciate, okay? So getting on IndieCD and having that as a base where people can find you is totally valid. Hey, some person, how are you? It's really good to see you. I don't know if you heard about the earlier bit. I'll cover the announcement later in the show again for folks who are late coming through the door. We have a lot coming down in my other aspect of life, which kind of intrudes in this, but it overlaps. It makes things wonderful. I realize I've been cleaning, and most of my sword trainers are out of reach. So I'm looking for something to properly fidget with while I do this show. Ahaha. Here we go. Now I feel better. I had trouble doing my show without access to some kind of prop. It sounds funny, but it's a comfort item. Now, if we're going to look into joining NDCD, what do you bring? Well, I'm going to challenge you somewhat, Thesis. If you are worried about what you bring, I'm going to ask you this. You've been teaching people how to sword fight and how to do other martial arts. It becomes very quickly necessary for any instructor to take notes, to write down what you do. Okay? And through those notes and through your processes, preserve your knowledge and experience for future generations. It is just a necessary part of the process, the goal, the feel of being a sword master. So what I would say is you need to start at bare minimum, like a Google Doc, and start writing where you start with somebody from the ground up. Okay? Somebody who's never done a martial art before. What do they need? What do they need to know? Write all that down. Track it. Put your system and your observations into words, into text. Then you talk to me about getting it, or someone else about getting it edited and looked over. When you have a full thing, proofread and edited, and you refine it. And once you have it where it feels like a viable thing, you put it out. But you also do custom journals that are amazing, Thesis. You and Foxy do assorted crafts. That is something that you might want someday to expand. That would be what I would do with NDCD. Let's see. As I've said on the stream, I have to have a hanjin within reach of my computer. I'm watching Chinese dramas at the end of the day, so the sword will end up in my lap. Yes, I was actually thinking of you today, Thesis. I was at Dollar Tree, and I saw a Michelle Yeoh called Donnie Yen, older kung fu flick. I want to say, but butterfly swords, and I got it for $1.25. So that's actually my reward. Once everything is calmed down and is feeling better, and we're all restabilized after this program, and I do some stuff, I get to watch butterfly swords. I have to turn the sound off on this because I forgot to drop out and I forgot to turn the sound off. But there's nothing wrong with getting in, because get in with NDCD, get your stuff started, and then you can add more. Having that as a base is just a good idea. Plus, like I said, good. I'm looking forward to watching it, but interestingly, because our own Cindy Kep, who isn't here either, and that's kind of sad, she's going to be taking up a dual sword style. I'm very excited to see what she's learning, as well as expanding her already rather diverse spread of martial arts. And she's been showing. I am so proud of the people that I associate with on this channel who are taking what they're learning and seeking out more knowledge and then putting it to use and letting the benefit come from that. Oh, good evening, Blue Teddy. Because even I believe there are anything you love comes at some measure of a price. Okay? And if you love martial arts, your first price is learning the physical and mental and at times spiritual discipline related to a given martial art and treating it with the respect it deserves. Oh, I'm sorry. Be it Eastern or Western, it doesn't matter. You have to respect your teachers, you have to respect yourself, respect the system you're learning. At the same time, learning with a relatively critical thinking perspective. And that's the price of admission. And for that, you get health benefits, strength, perspective, tactically. You get the chance to see what's going on around you from a whole different way of thinking. And that builds confidence. It builds courage. It lights a fire kind of in your belly. It's glorious. Now, moving beyond that, when you start instructing is how you give back to the art itself. And as soon as you start instructing, that is the finest way to find out how much you need to go back over, how much you need to understand. That is the first barrel. I believe that a wisdom is gained like it's a pillar, okay? And I've heard it places, and you're going up a long ramp like a screw that goes all the way up the pillar. And every so often there are gates. And there's gates of pain. Can you keep doing what you're doing while pain has been involved? There's gates of wisdom. There's gates of humility. And you see the same gate as you rotate through. And each time you approach it differently. And as you're training, there are the short-term drive is what I lovingly refer to as the Pokemon approach. The I want to be the very best, dun dun dun. That I have to be the gold medalist. And that's nothing wrong with that. That is a glorious thing to pursue and be and drive toward. But and yes, you make a valid point. Thesis says, I am 80% certain that the reason I healed faster and better than most after my hip was that I was a martial artist before and after. Used adaptive martial arts exercises, stretches. You knew your body, so you had the tools to recuperate. And recovering from a lot of activity comes at a high cost. And the cost is higher as you age, which further drives the aging martial artist toward efficiency, because you don't want to be weighted out. You only have so much mojo you can put towards this, and it's vital that you deal with that, because injuries are almost always cumulative in some way. But there's another approach. Getting back to what I was saying, the philosophy of I'm not trying to be the best at the far end. I want to be the best I can be at understanding the basics. And when the basics of any skill has become second or even first nature to you, that's when you've achieved personal mastery. That's internal mastery. And everything comes from mastering the internal. Control yourself and you can control the world. External mastery comes when you can, with a mix of knowledge, wisdom, and persistence, aid students in whatever style it is to gaining their own personal mastery. And by doing that, you gain a type of resilience and a type of understanding of the mental aspect that you would have never encountered any other way. It's a different approach, seeing the things you struggled with or were easy being dealt with through someone else's eyes and making the adjustments for their needs outside of your own ego. This is where you start to truly blossom. And, if there's wisdom in the man who plants a tree knowing he'll never get to sit under it and enjoy its branches. That's part of what the writing is for. And I know I've taken a long rope to it, but once you've started training students, you have to build consistency. Consistency of curriculum. Because to do it, but after you've done it for a while, you gain mastery in the instruction of the art. And once you begin to gain mastery in the instruction of the art, you are now poised to do something where you can start writing books about it. You start writing down your system. Well, what you really do is you start transposing your own notes and your own observations and your own philosophies into that system. Because when you have that, you owe that to the teachers. That there is a text. You owe that to the student who cannot find a teacher to ensure there is a text of your journey. And it may not be a true manual. It can be something small and philosophical like The Art of Peace. It could be something large and philosophical like The Art of War. It could be something with a narrative aspect like Musashi's Book of the Five Rings. You need to work towards preserving what you learn. And Thesis had said, and I didn't want to lose my momentum, and yes, rebuilding my lower body sucks, but I'm not stopping. Exactly. That's what we have to do. And I'm sorry, I had to do a very large shopping run right before the stream, and I kind of physically overdid it out of necessity. So I'm going to be doing a lot of my extra hand things and working my way through. But it's a skill set that at the end you will understand the basics at a level where you couldn't. And then once you're writing your manual, you now understand the process of taking your notes and compiling them and writing your the setup, the prototypes towards your manual, whatever you consider it to be. It frames the process in your brain. You say, it's funny, teaching has been more difficult than learning for me. I know some people who just slide right into that role, but for me it's been the most difficult part. Well, that makes sense, because up until your injury, you have been very physically adept. So the physical aspects they are where you're going to, because I'm trying to phrase this very carefully. The physical aspects are what came natural to you. And frankly, a lot of it is you have a very good martial arts general physique. You're tall, you're fairly slender, you're very strong, but dexterous. This is a great foundation to build upon. When you're working with someone who isn't, then you learn more about yourself and about the art and how to teach it and how to learn it and how to adapt it. That's why because you've been teaching Foxy, you've been teaching Kitty, you've been teaching a few others, and you want to teach more because it feels like the next step, because it is. There are two major branches in growth in martial arts. And when I say that, I mean anything from MMA to collegiate fencing to demonstrating Tai Chi, whatever. To get the feedback, the reverberation that we need to test ourselves, we either grow through competition or education, which means we are either growing through the process of going through tournament after tournament, winning and losing and studying how you won and studying how you lost, and all the while maintaining, chasing that dream of winning the tournament, chasing that dream of being on the top pedestal. And every so often you come back to the fork in the road, because the other side is chasing the education side. You're either learning more for yourself, or you're passing it on to others, or if you are very fortunate and very wise, you get in a place where they're the same activity. Teaching and learning are the same thing, which sounds completely antithetical. But if you are teaching, you are listening to the student. What you are learning is what they need to succeed. What works for you and can work for them. What doesn't either. You have to find that and work it. And speaking of my journals and Fox's jewelry, if anyone want to get hold of us here on the Facebook page or Discord. So what if that is something that is something that you should? It's $5 to join Indie CD. Next year it's going up to $40. I really recommend you reach out to Joe Bachman, join Indie CD, get yourself established, because once you're established there, you'll be more immersed with other small business people, and you'll learn from them, and then you'll share it. It's almost like it's the same thing. Guys, martial arts are life. Training in martial arts is the process of life. It's all gung fu. And that mastery is what you seek. And then what you do with it is either chase the championship to test yourself against the best, or chase the education path to build people from the bottom up to be the best they can, and then point them to better instructors than you. So then you go to classes where you're not going to learn the style necessarily, although you are learning that almost passively. You're learning from their teaching technique and how to diffuse a student's fears, how to build up the ones who need it, how to recognize the ones who may need to be taken down a peg or two so that they can hear the lesson being presented to them. Finding that balance and holding yourself up doing it is something I need to write another book on. One of the books I want to do is, and I'm not sure if it's going to be the Staff of the Swordmaster or just the Swordmaster. I'm not sure yet. But it needs to be right. And it can't be done until after I've gotten the right volumes, of the different styles done. But then I'm going to really just do one book where I am deep diving the experiences I had having very, very self-serving instructors to giving instructors to learning that the best instruction I was going to get was my own research, where I was, my own research and observation, to training the eye to observe, to learning students and applying empathy to see where they are and what they need. I know it sounds like it's almost a mechanical, but you're looking at the device, which in this case, it's the student. How do you help them upgrade to reach their goals? And are their goals your goals for them? There's a lot to process. There's also teaching styles. And you have to understand how your style works, if it works. And if it's not, what you need to change. That in itself is an art. But it's an art that is worth learning. Because as soon as you put yourself through that, it truly takes you all the way back to square one. And I will tell you the great secret of any martial art I have found is having the wisdom to walk all the way back down the path and realize that the path ends at its beginning. That's why you'll find very accomplished, very, many times older, like Tai Chi practitioners doing the same move over and over. There was a story about a child who had learned Tai Chi from his father, who had learned it from his father. And the child was growing up, and he'd become a man. And he was out one day because he'd seen the wonders of his father's Tai Chi. And he knew that it paled before the wonders of his grandfather's. And he goes to him and he asks his father, I think there's something wrong with Grandpa. He's stuck. It's like he forgot. And in a more childlike aspect of the story, he may laugh about it. Grandpa forgot his way through the basics. He just keeps doing the equivalent of fourth position over and over again. He hasn't forgotten. He's refining. He's fine-tuning it so that even the most basic move, in fact, especially the most basic move, is delivered with absolute precision and accuracy. He is, the adjustments at that level he's making are imperceptible outside of him. And when you get to that point, you realize you're still a student. And the basics come alive to you in a way that you couldn't imagine. The beauty and the elegance of a properly done maneuver far pace the impression at some dramatic secret technique or somebody who is gifted with I don't want to say unnatural, but beyond the norm strength or speed or flexibility or something like that. And you start to watch, sessions, and you're not, especially if there's a match, a sparring match, whatever, you're not impressed on the basis of who is the victor. You're impressed by the efficiency of the action, the appropriateness. You're gone are contemplations of what guard goes where. That's all been internalized physically. And instead is the focusing on the feeling of the timing, the tempo, the rhythm of it, how well they can completely. A true master of many arts doesn't need to block, because if they have their ranges down, they can just. You ever see a real boxer? A real boxer. They don't lean way out when they're dodging shots. They don't have to. Fade back. Fade. Fade. All day. It's just enough. And the more narrow the margin of that you can function between success and failure, the more your mastery. What happens is that margin goes away and you reach a point. And I've seen people who have been at this point in their lives where there is no longer a question of success or failure. The battle is won the moment they step on the field. It is rare. It is incredibly situational. But when you get to witness it, it is a thing of such radiant beauty that it steals the air out of the trained observer's lungs. So you say, most of my students at college, when I was assisting my friend Shifu, told me they preferred learning from me than the official teacher. Probably because your approach was different. Write all of that down. Excellent. Excellent. That is beautiful. And whenever, if you have to there are programs that can transcribe your videos. Get the transcription of your video and look at it, read it when you're talking on a subject, and just start compiling them. After a while, you'll have enough for a book. And there are a lot of places you can put your book where it will sell. But if that's your goal, sure. And I want my books to sell because I do like money, and it is very good for my heart. It is good for my soul when the book sells. I feel joy. But it's more important to me that people are reading it, that occasionally it ends up in a library. It's like when I found out the Russians had a Russian site. Oh my God, Nick, they pirated your book. Of course they did. It was in a digital format. Of course they pirated it. That's what they do. But you know what? Even though I'm not getting paid, which is unjust, karmically, they're learning. Do you get that? They're learning the idea. And when you want to reach that level, your priorities have shifted. Because if you're chasing the competition, it is an inward thing. You have to understand that. It is all about you. Hardening yourself. Making flexible yourself. Training a discipline of the self. Controlling the self. Refining the self. Feeding and nurturing the self. Teaching is about building the student. Now, like I tell people, I'm just a footstool. This is my goal. I want people to step in my hands and get up to the next level. That's been my approach. But do you know what happens when you start reaching the extremes of either of these schools? You recognize the necessity, the yin and yang that is there to be complete. I'm fighting health problems and, recovery from everything that went wrong with me and, major life changes. I have, for a long time, been about the pursuit of building up others. And ironically, again, almost antithetically, the only way I can continue doing what I love, which is building you guys up, is by regaining and building myself up to what I can be. So when you start to reach the end of teaching, you realize you have to maintain yourself. You have to take time and focus on yourself. This is not natural for me. I am a born people pleaser. I am a born. I give, and it feels whenever I am taking care of myself, the element of that fits is the taking. But as you train, as you look to get better, you have to assess. You have to be paying attention to your opponents. And very many ways your opponents become both your student and your teacher. Your opponent shows you things in the physical discussion that is sparring. And they learn from what you do. And you have to learn how to assess that. One thing I've amazed people is my ability to watch a form that I've never learned and able to find spot mistakes. I'm not so good at doing that with European or Japanese arts, though. Well, I could give you part of that. Part of it is the nature of the katas. To borrow a term, there are a lot of terms, but I'm going to grab the kata because it fits well enough for the purpose of this conversation. When someone is learning a form, it is a dance. Never, a form is a dance. It has a rhythm. It has a measure. In the case of their movements, it has a flow. The body motions flow. And if you understand vaguely the style, you can see where a gap is opening. And usually if a form has a gap, someone is doing the form wrong. You didn't complete this, so it made it more awkward for you to do the next maneuver. It's hard with Japanese because Japanese styles tend to be so very hard. I mean, even Aikido is a very when it's based for weapons, because that's mostly where I live. There is a concreteness to it. But when you look at like karate or any of the truly hard arts, it's even harder to read. And one, because it's chop, it's go, it's blocky, it's chunk, this to this to this. It doesn't flow, it doesn't sing like the softer arts do. And that is not a measure of being more quality or less quality. But it's worse with one, Western martial arts get lumped together like Eastern martial arts, where people think there's one kind of fencing. And okay, back in the day it was saber. If you looked at the movies, a lot of times it was saber fencing. You would see, it drove me nuts, as much as I love the old movies, to see Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone just hacking it out with broadswords, but they're fighting them like they're light Olympic sabers. You watch the motions. It's very flicky. It's very fast. Flick, 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 flick. Incongruous. You're not... Use the sword as a sword! We all have to move forward, understanding that this is a thing that we'll see. And by seeing, write down what you see. Write down why you saw it. Write down what could be done about it. Because that's going to do a couple things. It's going to organize your thoughts. And then your thinking will match your actions. Your assessment will start to gain the exact kind of mastery that your physical expression is showing. But it's harder with Europeans because European styles usually do not have katas. It's much more if this, then that. This guard, this guard, this guard. But very rarely was there any recordings of between the plates. You know, you look at the old books and it's panel 1, plate 1, you do this. Plate 2, you do that. And it's like, how did you get from plate 1 to plate 2? That literally has been one of my great research bugs, great passions to figure out. If I see something that worked, how did you get from here to here? Figure 1 to figure 2. Figure 1.5 is where we need. How does the body flow to do that? Because there may be a lot of ways. And I think that was done deliberately. Because many, many styles, both Eastern and Eastern and Western, have a deliberate element of obfuscation, of being classified. It's necessary to figure out what the sword instructor, what the sword master didn't want you to know without him, or in some cases her. Figuring that out is part of mastery. It's part of understanding the art. And yes, Hema is lucky because they have surviving treatises that people can study. For Chinese arts, we really don't have much of that, and the ones we have are incomplete. Exactly. And the trick is that critical eye has to come out when you are studying the different treatises. Because you have to remember, what were they trying to accomplish? Some of them are very anchored in the honor duel. And the way of fighting in an honor duel is radically different than battlefield combat. And it's radically different than self-defense. One thing that drives me absolutely bonkers about the backsword wielding, great sword lusting, AI worshipping individuals on this list, and on not this list, in this kind of thing, not to throw any shade, but is that they don't think in terms of being in a unit. When you say weapons of warfare versus weapons of defense, one of the great ways to figure out if it is a weapon of defense or a weapon of war is, how does it affect being deployed in a unit? And the answer is, well, great weapons, yes, great weapons had lots of use and were widely deployed. in units. However, the great weapon that was most widely deployed was the spear. And it's time on some things we put aside the coolness and the fun of worshiping the side arms and just simply acknowledge that the spear was the rifle of history. Okay? Until rifles became a mainline weapon, the spear was it, guys. For melee. It allowed a very simple set of techniques to be deployed in numbers with control for area denial. They're not the best aggressive weapon. They're a heck of a defensive weapon. And when deployed with a proper combination of shields and other interworking weapons, they make a lot of sense. Great weapons were developed and many times to try to dissuade the spears and to be sturdy enough to do horrendous blows to other living tanks. So when you're dealing with armor, it affects the weapon. When you're not wearing armor, you don't need some of the excess. And we see that in modern conflicts today. To take out a modern tank, you need incredibly powerful explosives. To take out an unarmored vehicle, that can be done as easily as a high-powered slug, applied to the engine, the driver, or the drivetrain, the wheels or something, to stop it from going. Likewise, if people aren't clanking around in full armor, your physical combat doesn't need to be as excessive. And that's where the firearm killed heavy armor. But you have to look at what you're training. When you look at your source, why did they teach this style? What were they doing? The other thing that's really important. Oh, absolutely. I love Chinese spear, but Sergio is a beast with a spear. If you go to my channel, you'll see the variety show. You'll see him performing. Excellent. Share the link to that up in the guild list when you get a chance. If you want to, because I'm going to keep going on this part. The other thing is Chinese martial arts sacrifice apparent sanity in unarmed combat to make you much better at armed combat. Do you see what I'm saying? They're all part of the same system. They're different instruments playing the same song. Okay? You can have a flute play the same song as a guitar. Does that make sense? Whereas farther west, we have split armed combat techniques and unarmed combat techniques much, much deeper. And even I admit freely that I have to be careful because I have old safety rules where unarmed applications could be very dangerous in training. And I've had people ask for that. And the problem is, it's like, how do I teach people how to do this without them actually hurting each other? And some of it would take years of training on their part to be able to take the fall. And years of a vast amount of gear and a ring that could allow you to fall safely. And even then, it could be very dangerous. Which is why I don't engage in those higher risk styles. And I don't teach them. There are other people who can. If that is your jam, please pursue it. If it's something you love, there's some great, especially like the MMA approach, or you want, my brain goes, unarmed MMA. Armed, you're looking at something like bow hurt. If you want to pursue that, cool. You're signing on the dotted line, and I respect you for doing it. My part of assessing my limitations is I am not built for that style of training or combat. And, if posed with a necessity, I'm going to be forced to use less honorable means of response. Honorable. We're going to float honorable there because that's a whole nother discussion. To survive, which is cheating, cowardice, begging. These are all ways one can survive a conflict if done right. They are ugly tools at the bottom of your toolbox, but they're there. And, just underhanded trickery, deceit, deception, sudden and terrible escalations of violence. But that's not where I want to live, because that's not where I want to teach people to be. We discuss it because in points of, the difference from sparring, because sparring for me is not about winning the trophies and, it's about, can I be better than me? And the only way I can test is by the people around me. And as a way of fact checking my training. That's why I might cross train. If you learn something that goes better, bring it back, share it with everybody. Now, both of these gentlemen, who I'm not going to try to pronounce, wrote manuals, and they were military treatises instead of dual or personal combat manuals. Exactly. And a military treatise is a different thing, because unfortunately, to train an army of conscripts, of people forced into combat, it has to be simple enough for the lowest common denominator. It has to be dumb enough, simple enough in style that the least intelligent student can make it go. It has to be enough of a force multiplier that even the weakest conscript may defend themselves. And it has to be easy enough to grasp, practice, and learn that you can mass produce it at high speed. That's what you get with military training, at least until you start reaching the special forces. And I'm using that all across the board. The way they trained the emperor's bodyguards in the different dynasties was radically different than the way they trained the footmen. The Japanese have a term for cannon fodder. You have to work up from here, catch their ammunition with your body. Oh, that's okay. So you have to look at who they're teaching, why they're teaching it that way, what you can get out of it. And for our purposes, I believe in tailoring. I have a system. I will teach the same system to everybody. Everybody learns the same rules. Everybody gets the same box of crayons. And then, once everybody's gotten the same box of crayons, I say, you like to use blue more. Here's how you change the shade of blue. Here's how to deal with it if you have too much red as an artist. it's like there are recipe books you buy, cookbook, you open it up, do this, this, this. It will consistently give you the same cake, the same stir fry, the same whatever you're baking, roast, whatever. Then, after you know it, you go, you know what this needs? It needs a little more garlic. Or it needs, oh God, I can't remember the spice Mandy uses when she makes nutmeg. Mandy puts the family recipe for sugar cookies that she does calls for a very small amount of nutmeg. And she accidentally put in a vast amount because there was a spill. And being poor, her family cooked it. And the cookies tasted better. And they realized that the cookies tasted like Grandma made because she wrote the recipe down, but she tweaked it later. And she wanted to keep the taste of Grandma's cookies a little different. And I love the conversation of blue is the best color. My bed is blue. Mine too. Blue used to be one of my favorite colors. And I still love blue. I'm a very big fan of blue. But it is my son's favorite color. So blue things tend to belong to Xander. And I do like orange as well. And Mandy likes purple. So purple things oftentimes belong to Mandy. And orange tends to belong to me. It's a good system. I don't know when I picked up deciding I liked orange as much as I do. But I really do like orange. So, blue, green, purple. I can see that. I tend to like your fall colors. So your browns, your oranges, red, true reds, true golds. I like that. And tweed. My original answer for a long time was my favorite color is tweed. Leave me alone. And now I want tea because I thought about that time in my life where it was very much a Giles mindset. And I still want tea. Dang it, I'm going to have tea now. Maybe it'll help my throat. But I know it took me a little while to get rolling on this one. I had eaten late, and I think my blood sugar actually came up during the show for a change, instead of crashing during the show. But as you're taking your journey, keep track of where you are. And don't be afraid to take that next step. And I encourage anyone who has become proficient and skilled in anything to give back to the system that made you by at least for friends, at least a little bit, writing down and sharing your methodology. We live in an era where digital books are so easy to produce compared to how it used to be. Amazon is a great resource. It is not as good as it used to be, and a lot of people are pressuring. Right now, I'm almost exclusively through Amazon, but a lot of people are pressuring me to consider going elsewhere because there's some bad things possibly coming down the pipe. I will see. But if the print program ends on Amazon, I will go to another program site. That's just how it has to be. But right now, it works fairly well. Draft to Digital, Lulu.com all have tools to help you write. And the thing is, when you start to gain mastery in one thing, you start to understand the path to gain mastery in others. And that's why I think it's so important to take time and self-assess not just your capacity for victory, but your capacity as a teacher and as someone who can write down your things. Because even if you don't think it's good, as long as it's grammatically passable, your writings can have effect on people you have never met. And ironically, for all the shenanigans, this may be one of the most important things. Now, I am going to be closing the show momentarily. I want to thank you all for a lovely chat. It was a quiet one today, but I'm okay with that. Sometimes we need the quiet. I do want to remake my announcement, aside from the whole bit about me explaining that, yes, I am okay. I was not harmed in the fire. We didn't have a fire, our neighbor did. Some people were trying to spread stuff around and didn't quite have all the facts, so I'm being clear. But in February, if you are in the Indiana, West Side, Illinois, East Side Central area, I am holding a creators convention. IndieCD.con, which has ties to IndieCD.org, wherein a bunch of authors and artists and other creatives, people who make things, are going to have tables and sell things and give advice. Depending on the space, I'd love to be able to set up panels. I don't know if I'll be able to do that this year. Oh, speaking of teachers, I finally got a chance to utilize the feedback you gave me on that page. Results are up on Twitter. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me about it. My absolute pleasure. And I look forward to looking into that. So, guys, expect for Patreon folks, expect the secret link to come up probably tomorrow, because I have to start over and redo the formatting and everything to do the upload. Next week, maybe, if everything goes well, it will be broadcast to you wonderful regular folks, whom I love too. Please like this video. Please share it around, because we need the press. And it's not I want anymore. It's I am producing more content besides the live streams to get back in the form of things. It's just taken me this long to feel that I'm physically strong enough and be mentally clear enough to produce even a glimmer of what I hope to be of service to you guys. So with that, guys, keep your eyes open, keep your guard up, be kind to yourself and each other, and as always, thank you for supporting your local Swordmaster. I will see you next week, and yep, don't forget to like and such. And guys, I love you. You should too. Toodles.